All right, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks, who are in an interesting situation here. I feel like I say every team is in an interesting situation. It's interesting. Football is interesting. Seahawks are in an interesting situation as they, coming off of a year where I think we had high expectations for them, or at least like solidly high expectations. We thought they could be good at the very least. And they were good, but they weren't good enough to make the playoffs. It was kind of a disappointing year as it felt like they let too many games get away from them. So where did they go from here? How did they go back from being, even 2 years ago, they made the playoffs in the last game of the season and got knocked out round one? How did they go from this kind of bubble playoff team to potentially a really good team? No more Pete Carroll. Where do they go from here? Well, first, if you look at their cap space, the cap space and cash differential is pretty dramatic. They're, not spending a ton of money, but they don't have a ton of cap space right now, which is actually okay. Especially if you're trying to be competitive, you can work around it. If we talk about kind of the cap, is it real? Is it not real? I'll let you be the judge, but certainly it's something you can work around. And the cash tends to be a better indicator of how much money you actually have to spend. So, okay, they have a little bit of money to spend, but do they have free agents they have to keep? That answer is like, well, yeah. I mean, there's worse situations to be in, but there's definitely some players that they want to make sure that they keep in the building. These are actually forgot to put someone who I meant to put on this chart, Jordan Brooks. So I'll talk about him first. His projection, the number next to each of these guys' names, how many millions they're projected to get. Brooks is projected for $12 million, been a solid outside linebacker, was a first round pick for them. I don't know though. $12 million might be a bit much for me personally, especially if you're going through a rebuild. That's just kind of how, or not a rebuild, but if you're looking to, maybe use this money. If you don't have a ton of money, is what I'm trying to say. If you're not a team that has a ton of money to spend, I'm not sure if this almost feels more like a luxury signing than something else. So it's just something I'd be a little weary of. Noah Fant, I like Noah Fant. Again, you don't need to keep him, but you'd probably like to keep him. Another former first-round pick here. Bobby Wagner, who obviously I think he's staying at this point. If he's projected for only $4 million, if you need $4 million to keep him in the bank, to keep him on the team, that's all it takes. Yeah, give him $4 million. Imagine if they said $4 million. Nah, we're not doing that for Bob. If Bob Wagner stunk, it'd still be worth it to give him $4 million just because he's Bobby Wagner and you're the Seahawks. That alone is worth it. Remember that one year when he was with the Rams? That was weird. Anyway, some other players like Damian Lewis as a guard. Again, I feel like a lot of these free agents, it's like, I like him. Is he worth $10 million? I don't know. Maybe. He's probably worth $10 million. Probably a fair contract, I guess. But I don't know if he's worth much more than that. So it's it's a discussion to be had. Evan Brown, I don't think he's great. I don't think he'd cost a lot. $4 or $5 million seems to be around what he would project. Darrell Taylor, again, these kind of guys. Drew Lock. These are guys where if you let them walk, you have to replace them. Right? That's just the situation. So definitely the Brooks situation, the Fant situation, and the Lewis situation are all guys you're going to really have to make a decision on. Bobby Wagner, I think you're keeping. And then the other guys, you either have to replace or you just keep and say, fine, we'll pay you the projected amounts you're supposed to get. Now, the interesting thing is they do have some guys that they can decide to let go if they want to, and they can get rid of. They can clear up money that way. That's kind of the other factor, because it's not just cap space and free agents. It's also, can you clear up money? It's football. Contracts aren't fully guaranteed. Well, let's see what they could do. You see their current situation of Jamal Adams, which is an interesting one, because I can't believe they never just said, you know what, we screwed that up. The fact that he never got traded to Tampa Bay when Tampa Bay was competing for Super Bowls and Seattle was okay, not really fitting, and Adams isn't really fitting into scheme. Give him back to Todd Bowles. I still don't get that. I still don't get why he's here. Again, you might be able to get some draft capital for him, or maybe not. Maybe you just cut him for the $7 million. It's something you have to consider at this point. I like Jamal Adams, but he's always injured and he doesn't fit this. Again, might be a new scheme, I don't know, but it's just something you have to consider. Guys like Tyler Lockett and Quandre Diggs, I don't think you're getting rid of. A lot of these guys, I don't think you're just getting rid of to get rid of. A couple you might just get rid of to get rid of. I think a lot of these guys, though, it's less about great, easy, let's get rid of Tyler Lockett to save $7 million, because Tyler Lockett's good. You want to keep Tyler Lockett, but do you trade him? Do you get some draft capital for him? Again, if you're up against the cap, it's a conversation you could have, but as I mentioned, they can move the cash around. They don't need to make a move like this. So again, the kind of final page here of, cap space currently sitting at 12 million, projected cap space. So not a lot of cap space, but 85 million in cash. And it would only cost 36 million to re-sign everybody, but that's actually wrong. It'd be 48 million to re-sign everybody. Because again, like I mentioned, forgot to include Jordan Brooks in this and just realized it right before I was recording it. So there's that. The money that could be freed is another 48 million. So they could, in theory, free up 48 million and spend it all on their upcoming free agents, but then they'd have to replace everyone they just cut. So, there's some issues there, but definitely they can keep this roster relatively intact. And they do have a lot of young players. Obviously, they got a lot of young players from the Russell Wilson trade, although I think, they did a really good job last year. You could still look at the Charles Cross one. Hasn't fully worked out the way you want it to, but he's fine. I don't know. They're not in a bad situation. They're almost in an annoyingly solid situation if you're a Seahawks fan, where it's like you look at this and you're like, yeah, that's not bad. That we're okay. But can you get better than that? And that's kind of the question I posed at the beginning of the video of, can they go from being a bubble playoff team to a legit contender? And I kind of think that to some degree these young players just have to step up a little bit, which is possible. I mean, I don't know. Devin Witherspoon was awesome, and I think Tariq Woolen is good. So, but can they, can Tariq Woolen take the next step to be an elite level corner, and then you can have an elite level secondary? Does the new coaching staff come in and get the most out of these players, which is a very unique situation? I think that, can Boye Mafe, who I thought showed some real strides in year 2, can he continue to grow and get better? Do you hit on your draft picks and get more, quality players that way? And can you get just more of a healthy season out of Geno Smith? Drew Lock had to come in and play a decent amount, and I thought Geno Smith, at first, I didn't think he played quite as well as he did last year, but I thought towards the end of the season was playing like Geno Smith again. I do think Seattle was probably a playoff caliber team last year, which is interesting because Green Bay did so well in the playoffs. They would have been the team that got knocked out. But I thought Seattle, they let a couple games get away from them that they probably shouldn't have. I think if they, I think that's kind of what you look back on and say they're probably better than their record indicated. So you got that going for you. But again, for them to get to that next level, it feels like they need more out of their young players to step up. Again, maybe the young offensive lineman, the Abraham Lucas not getting banged up, that certainly hurts things. That might be, honestly, you could argue that's just a big thing. Get a healthy season out of Abraham Lucas, and Charles Cross, who again I thought played solid last year, still hasn't lived up to his draft hype just yet, but maybe he'll do it in year 3, and maybe you get it that way. So I don't think help is coming externally for Seattle, I guess, is kind of the main way I'll end this video. I don't think that if they end up as Super Bowl champions next year, it's not going to be because they made a big trade or they, signed a big free agent. Maybe it'll be through the draft, which is always a possibility, but it'd probably be through just their young players stepping it up and maybe even some of their veterans stepping it up a little bit. So, yeah, that's kind of how I view this. If I'm Seattle, I'm not making any rash moves. I'm keeping the guys that I want to keep. I'm, drafting well, hopefully, and just going that way. That's my mindset. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.